All right. So I'm proud to announce that today we are going to be talking about pride. Okay, it's just a little joke to start our conversation today. This is the Spiritism at Noon. We have been dedicating our studies in this phase to talk about self-awareness and inner transformation. And it's always important to be reminded that the main goal of that is to help us to know or to guide us a little bit on our day-to-day basis about things that perhaps we are not paying that much attention in our behavior because life is happening so fast. Everything is all the occurrences of the world, and sometimes we barely stop to analyze ourselves and our thoughts and even our actions. So this is the main goal, and actually the main purpose of our spiritual studies as a whole is to conduct us to a better behavior, to get to know ourselves better, to become better, more knowledgeable, but of course more perfect spirits, which is the aim of our incarnation. So last meeting that we had, we started talking about humility and how taking as reference the words of Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount, that is the basis of our studies as well, together with the 13 virtues of Benjamin Franklin. Remember that that was one of the virtues that he forgot to add. And finally is the 13th virtue, and he describes as what can I do to become humble? And according to him, follow the examples of Socrates and Christ. Um, and why is humility so important is in our process? Because how can we actually go to a process of self-awareness, of paying attention to what needs or should be improved in us, and what is within our reaches already, if we are not humble, if we all the time are going to be finding excuses, blaming the world, or saying that this is other people's view, that I'm not this way. So it's very important for us to be humble and to put pride, which is the main reason why it is so difficult for us to achieve not only the virtue of humility, but all the others. So that's the reason why they say that pride is the greatest plague of humanity. Pride is what leads to hatred, to envy, to lust, to murder, and all other things that place the importance of self ahead of all else. A proud person hates the fact that someone is above oneself. One thinks this lowers one's position. Pride has many symptoms and features. The difficult the difficult thing about it is that it is so hard to see it in oneself. Often the people who hate pride the most in others are those who are the proudest themselves. So let us start making a remark that this is one of the tricky words that we have in our vocabulary, okay? Because especially for us Americans, I mean, the sense of pride was always very much nourished, in relation to your personal achievements. But here we are talking in a different sense. And not in the sense of you feeling happy, uh, accomplished, and even talking about your accomplishments. It is something that, let's say, it would go more into the harmful side of what pride can actually signify. For instance, in this case, it is explained how much sometimes it is our pride that puts us or gives us the impression that because we were born in this or that place, in this or that condition, or because we belong to this or that ethnicity, or because we belong to this or that gender, that we are better than the others. Okay, so for how long have been, I mean, I think we still have not rid ourselves from that, but you know, the position of the world is that men are superior to women. And what we learn from spiritism is that there is no one superior to another. Everyone was created in the same condition, and everyone has been through their own experiences and achievements, conquering new positions. So if there is a superiority, let's say in one sense, is because of hard work that everyone else will be able to achieve, because like we always mention here, it doesn't matter how long it takes for a baby to learn how to walk. There are babies that start walking with 9 months. There are babies that start walking 1 year and a half and or 1 year, but at the end of everyone will be walking, right? So this is the same thing. There is no reason for us to especially focus on the external things and considering ourselves superior to this or that person, or because of conditions. Superiority here, the true proud person could be that one which really has been achieving a more spiritual evolvement. And here, of course, we are talking in terms of, you know, the positive aspect of pride, when that you feel fulfilled because you are following in the path of righteousness, and thus you will be seeing each time more the results. So I'll stop now to see if you have any considerations so far. Yes, Sonia.
Then the pride, I believe it's not really associated with position and how rich you are or things, because I know people, there is no money, no position, and continue to be suburb and always believe the position of opinion is always right, and always push the others around them down and feel more better or more than the others. And I always use this word suburb because I think it's plain better this kind of behavior.
Yeah, one that boasts about everything, right? It has this even pose of superiority, right? That's why I think it was just, you know, genius the way Benjamin Franklin said, okay, what do I have to do to be humble? Follow the examples of Socrates, follow Socrates and Jesus, because you see, it's very important what you're saying, Sonia. We will see people that have, let's say, a reasonable knowledge, okay, and even education, but because they already have achieved this reasonable knowledge and education, they think that they are the best of the best. Until, of course, next corner you will find people that are so much more genius than you are, right? And so and this is the situation that we see with Socrates, and that for those who haven't heard that yet, I'm going to repeat myself when so many thinkers of his time were disputing the position of being the most knowledgeable, the wisest person in Greece at that time. And they even went to the point of consulting the oracle, which is intriguing, right? Even they were, if they were wise, if they had all the knowledge, they still use the resources of spiritual communications with the beyond, right? So they went, I mean, the great thinkers of humanity, the great people, they wouldn't do anything without consulting the gods, the spirits, all that. So they went to this oracle of Delphos and asked the well, let's call it the medium for the sake of clarity. And she said that the most knowledgeable one, the wisest man, was Socrates. Exactly the only one that thought that, that thing was so silly. Not consulting with the oracles per se, but, this dispute of knowing who among them were the best. And when they returned to Socrates and told that, you know what, they said you were the wisest, thinking that he would be humble, so to say, saying, no, I'm not, or, pretending that he was not such a wise person. And then his response was astonishing to them because he said, yeah, I agree with her. And they said, oh my God, this is a very you know proud person, and then he said, well, the reason why I agree with her is because I'm the only one among us that know that I know nothing, that knows that I know nothing. So this is the situation here. So it's not a matter of how much you have in the money, how much education you have, or how much pretty you may be, because age happens. You can be so pretty today, not that much in a couple of years or decades, everything that was up goes down, right? So anyway, that's the thing about us really positioning ourselves and not being in this insane competition. I remember that once I read one phrase that is stuck with me, that is more or less like this, that you don't have to be better than anyone, you just have to be better than yourself yesterday. So, and this has always been my goal. I don't try to compare myself with others because I have my own possibilities. I understand my weakest point, my strongest point, how fast I can go or not. Sometimes it varies. Sometimes I'm like the road runner, and sometimes I'm more like the turtle on the hare and the turtle story. I go very slowly, but continue going. So it is this, and this is why your comment is very important, Sonia, because this is something that we also bring from our spiritual experience in other existences, and it's quite often the spirits tell us that people that have been in a certain position in previous existences, even though now they do not hold this position anymore, they still behave as if they were kings and queens, or had all the power and the money and prestige of the world, and it has nothing to do with that. Just because I remember now that the little story that I also don't know whether I shared already with you or not, that Chico Xavier, the one from the books we read so much, once was very intrigued with some comments that people around him were were saying about their previous incarnation, saying, "Oh, I had a revelation that in a previous life I was someone very important, or I was a duke, I was, I belong to the court of so and so, and royalties, and this and that." And then once he was in a conversation with the spirit Emmanuel, because Chico could do that, have a chat with the spirit Emmanuel, and said, "Emmanuel, what do you have to tell me about, or to say about, all these people that seem to remember previous existence, and they say that they come from very high positions in history, in money, in power, position, all of that. Can this be true? Really, all of them were like, that special?" And Emmanuel answered to him, "Yes, it is true." And of course, Chico was kind of, not understanding. Well, how come, right? So all of us here belong to the realm of so and so, royalties, and this and that. And he said, "Yes, because those that were humble, they are already living in so much better place than you are here on earth." So this is a very good lesson for us in terms of, boasting about being or having been so and so, because the values of the spirit are not the values of the material world, and we don't want this to happen, right? Any questions or comments? Okay, so let's go ahead. Pride obscures all truth from us. It is only by a rigorous examination of our thoughts and actions that we can hope to reform, to transform. How can the proud individual submit to such an analysis? Of all people, one is the last to know oneself, since the person is careful to avoid those who might enlighten oneself. Amazed with one's personality, nothing can open one's eyes. In order for the study of the universe and its law to be fruitful, simplicity, sincerity, and a straightforwardness of heart and mind are necessary above all. All of these qualities are unknown to the proud people. So here is like, we have a blind spot, right? Like we normally say, it's every time we acknowledge our mistakes, um, we always will try to find an excuse for that. Because even when acknowledging that there were things that we did that was not correct and that should be amended, or we should not go in this way anymore, we will not assume the responsibility. And while we don't do that, it becomes very hard for us to realize that there is something or an area in ourselves that needs to be better worked. I mean, better analyze it. So this is why we this process of bettering ourselves is so hard. And how often people will come to you and say, or to us and say some things about our personality traits that we are going to say, nah, this person doesn't know what they are talking about. No, I'm not like this. Oh, no, I mean, I know better. I know myself. Yeah, sure. We know ourselves. We know our history. But sometimes, someone that is from the outside, they can see clearer than we ourselves, because we are trying to avoid this face to face with us. Again, this is a very personal way of dealing with things, private way of dealing with things. Like I said before, the idea here is not for you to go out shouting in the world, oh, I just found out that I am a very vain person, or that I am so impatient, or you start listing your imperfections. No, this is not the point. The point is for us to acknowledge that there are areas that we need improvement and that we can do that. Of course, the only way we will not do that is if there is no self-awareness, if we don't go in this direction. Questions, comments? Yes, Sonia?
Then when we read things, I remember about love your enemies, because usually they show us our defects. They talk about what we don't want to listen. And then this time, we need to pay attention, because maybe it's an item we need to improve in ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even when we had this phrase here that they say, often the people who hate pride the most in others are those who are the proudest themselves. Because there is this in psychology, they use this, the way we are, and we mirror ourselves in others. So sometimes even if a person doesn't like us that much, and this person, she's so clear in us a certain personality trait that is not good. Maybe it's because it's also very familiar to this person. But in any case, like you said, the difference here is that sometimes a supposed enemy will have no problem in saying to your face the things that they think, and while a friend sometimes will say, oh, if I say this to him or her, I might hurt them, or in the same way that we do, they will try to excuse our behaviors, at least until it's possible to excuse our behaviors. So yes, we should pay attention. Again, let us always pay attention, and not because sometimes, some comments are made just with the intention of destroying us, right, of putting us down. But even then, in any case, we hear, we analyze, and if there is need for action, let's do what is necessary. Okay, anyone else would like to say something? Okay, so let's go to the next one. Pride is also the originator of sufferings beyond the grave. Spiritism shows us that those who occupied highly important positions in earthly life often find themselves in sharply reduced circumstances in the spirit world. On the other hand, many who did not have important positions on earth, but spent their life cultivating spiritual virtues, find themselves occupying very comfortable positions there. By the same token, Spiritism demonstrates the fact that some people who were dominated by pride and ambition, when they held influential positions in a particular earthly life, end up having to live in humbling circumstances during a future incarnation. A little thought and wisdom can preserve us from these tribulations. So those are things that the spirits clarify to us, that, pride, and remember again, when we're talking about pride here, is pride in the negative sense, is always going to get in the way, even on our return to the spirit realm. because sometimes we think that we deserve privileges, so to say, and that we should be entitled to certain privileges in the afterlife, if that is the case. And when returning, we will see that the things that I bring in my luggage are not adequate to the place. So sometimes, when we travel to the life beyond, bringing winter clothes to an African temperature, right? So we amass the wrong things. We worry too much about just the what we need, or it should be giving us satisfaction on life on earth, but life in the spirit realm is not does not go by the same rule. And so sometimes, people that are considered to be very humble, in a very humble situation here on this earth, will be really the ones that are going to be in a good position. Again, it has nothing to do with the outside. It's the inner self, because we are going to see, um, like we always say, people in the highest position of intellect, like a Socrates saying, "I know that I know nothing," and others that just because they graduate from high school thinking, "Oh my God, I know everything in the world, there's no need for more education," right? Or even in terms of positions in the world. So this is also not only is going to help us here now in the way that we position ourselves in the world, but in the after, in the afterlife as well. Any comment or question?
It just that I remember one of the stories uh, about I don't know if she was queen of France or she was queen, and she returned to the spirit world, and she found that when she was there, she found that her servants were in a higher position and being well and good, and she was now in turn being was treated like a servant,
Mhm.
understanding that she thought she was taking this with her to the spirit world. And would you I think that's what you just said. I'm trying to interpret that whatever we do here, we take with us and understand we will get what we deserve. And being
Yes,
proud is one of the terrible things that we could take with us to the spirit world. Is that true? Or,
yeah, that's it, exactly it. Of course, the only thing that we would say is that it's not that she's going to be treated as a servant, but she is like she's going to be to feel less than a servant,
yeah.
because there she has nothing to offer,
Mm,
right? And this is, is one of the surprises we may have. It's not knowledge, even of the spiritual things, right? It's not knowledge, it's not money, it's not youth, it's not power, it's not
mm,
achievements that are considered according to the world, that is going to be taken into consideration. So the true royalty, and we have some of those testimonials even in the book, The Gospel According to Spiritism, the true royalty, and even has one of the spirits that talks about this, how misguided she was in
yeah.
thinking that she would, because she was, you
Yeah.
know, she held that position on earth, then this is what was going to be taken into consideration there.
Mm.
It's all about what we are, what we give, the love that we nourish in ourselves, the efforts that we do to become better, that is going to make the difference. The understanding, because you see, in our position, even if we do not know that much, if we do not have that many years of doing good deeds, or um, things in this direction, it doesn't matter, because what happens is, at least when we return to the spirit realm, we will no longer be surprised. Okay, we know what it is, we know what it is all about. We've been doing the effort, so we are already a few steps ahead. Because now we have to consider people that do not know anything about that gets there, and sometimes even people from the several religious positions, that they say, no, I'm so and so, I'm closer to God, and they will see that they are not. Actually, in this book, in the book Liberation, that we are studying on Sundays, right, and
Yes.
one Sunday a month, it talks about the story of an ex-pope that is the king of the shadows, right? Because he got there, and he was not closer to God. His interest on earth was never actually to serve God, but to serve himself and his own interests. So in our case, at least we will not have this surprise, and we will be already, I hope, deserving of of being in places where we will be able to continue from here, right? What we are doing, and others still have to deal with the surprise of the afterlife, until they realize that they are alive, because dead, because many of them, for quite a few times, we still think that they are dead, and dealing with their pride of knowing that everything that they thought made them superior had no value. They invested in the wrong uh, uh, the wrong area, and so that is really hard. That's why, again, let us not worry that much if there is so much for us still to achieve. Of course there is. We are just starting. I mean, just only yesterday we opened our eyes. But we open our eyes. It's like, the baby that starts taking their first steps. I mean, once you start walking, you continue walking. You don't go backwards. I mean, we still cannot run, because I'm just learning how to walk. But we already understand our new position and from where to go.
Yes.
Questions, comments? Okay. So, how can we overcome pride and become humble? A very good question, right? Let's see if we have an answer. We can practice humility. Every time, um, you see that you are out of track symbolically. How do you say in English when you biliscar? Oh my God, I have no idea how to say that in English.
Pinch.
Huh?
Pinch.
Yes, you pinch yourself. Okay. or like there are people that they use bands, elastic bands, right? You
Oh,
pull,
yes.
you pinch yourself. Oh my God. Now,
Mine
now,
is-
now, let's take a few steps back, right? So, sorry, Zoraida.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
So, yeah, I mean, just a silly thing. Humility in action combats pride, because, we cannot uh, actually become humble. I mean, there is no possibility of having pride and having and being humble. It's one thing, the opposite of the other. So we have to move away from pride. Pride is our nature, and humility is something we must learn. So our second nature is still pride. And that's why, being mindful of your thoughts, of your actions, of the words you say will help in the process of re-educating or educating yourself in this way. Humility is not a trait that comes natural, right? Remember Benjamin Franklin saying that even when I say I'm humble, I'm no longer humble, right? Because I'm boasting about it. Oh, look at
Right.
me,
Right.
how humble I am, right?
Yes.
That's the trickiest thing to do. Therefore, humility must be a conscious choice that we integrate into our daily attempts to improve the way we live our lives. Again, it's only being mindful of our behaviors that we can improve them. Okay.
I love the quote from
Yeah,
Untitled.
the quote's good, right? No one ever choked to death swallowing his pride. Yeah, there are some people that are just brilliant in those quotings. And
Mm.
so let's see here. Uh, continue with the guidelines. Appreciate your talents. Being humble doesn't mean you can't feel good about yourself. Self-esteem is not the same as pride. So it's important for us to have this clear here, especially when we are talking about, the understanding and the importance that pride has in the American culture as well. So we are not talking here that you cannot, be happy with your appreciating your talents, the things that you have achieved. So it has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with humbleness. Okay. You are entitled to do that. Oh my God, look, I finally did that. Or, it can maybe in the silly things of life, right? A few accomplishments. You're trying the kitchen, a recipe for so long, it doesn't work. All of a sudden, it does work. And you say, oh my God, that was wonderful. Taste this food, right? Why not? Conduct an honest evaluation of yourself. Honesty with yourself is the best policy. If you know you are weak in a certain area, your enemies will not be able to have that power over you. So again, what we have been saying so far, let's look at ourselves. Let's not be afraid of saying, okay, I'm still a disaster in this area. And if someone comes to you and say, oh, you're a disaster in this area, you'll say, okay, I know. You'll say even to yourself, you don't need to say, right? So you're not going to be down because people are noticing or saying something you know already. So yeah, I know. I'm trying my best to move in the opposite direction, right?
Yes.
Thank you for your comment. Understand your limitations. No matter how talented you are, there is almost always somebody who can do something better than you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh, that's the fact of life. And there is always someone that is better.
Always.
And when we think we are off, okay, no need to feel bad about it. But the idea is saying, oh my God, how good that I reached it already, the, you know, a place where so many others have reached it before me.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my goal. My goal is to reach 10. There were others that reached 10 before me. Why am I going to feel sad? No, I'll say, oh my God, let's, appreciate your talents and be content with that. Recognize your own faults. We cannot see here, but in the illustration we have a
Yeah.
book that is called Mistakes I've Made. We judge others because it's a lot easier than looking at our own faults, but it's also unproductive and harmful. I'm not going to be better or become better if I start pointing others' imperfections. It's not going to add at all in my process of evolvement. So you may do that as a friend, trying to help someone and say, please feel free to do the same with me. But it's not by saying, oh, my cake is so much better than someone else's cake, that your cake is the best there is, right? I'm always using the examples of cake. Or, my cooking. Okay, but it's still, you're not a chef, right? You can cook well, but there will be people that do that better. So there is no point in doing that. While we are paying so much attention in other people's lives and behaviors, we are not doing that, our own homework. Okay. And stop comparing. Why? Because it's just about impossible to be humble when we are striving to be the best or trying to be better than others. What we said before, it's not about comparing. I mean, if you have to compare yourself or set a goal for you, let's set a goal like, thinking about Jesus, Moses, or, St. Francis, Teresa, or Pasteur, or whatever, Beethoven, whatever your interests you find your interests. Any comments so far?
So opposed to good pride, there is good pride then.
Yeah.
Have pride that, will make you be not good at all. But then there's good pride, proud of what you've done in life, good things.
Mhm.
So pride versus good pride versus bad pride. But
Yes.
there is good pride, and it's all set here, just like you explained so beautifully.
Mhm.
You evaluate yourself, but not to, go against anyone else and putting them down, thinking that you're the best. But
Mhm.
it's very, very clear here, very nicely explained, Jussara. Mm.
Thank you. And another one. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Never be afraid to admit that you made a mistake. Part of being humble is to understand that you will make mistakes,
Mm.
right? So we're not perfect. We are far from being perfect. So there will always be situations where you can say, well, I could have said the same thing in a totally different way. I think the way I manifest myself was hurtful. And what did I gain with that, for instance, but again, we will only be able to correct these little things, if we pay more attention to ourselves. Don't be afraid to defer to others' judgment. It's easy to acknowledge that you make mistakes and that you're not always right. Somewhat more difficult, however, is the ability to acknowledge that in many cases, other people, even people who disagree with you, may be right. So yeah, it's not easy, right? To say, yeah, you know what, you're right. Again, you don't need to say that out loud, okay? Just admit to yourself and move on. Okay, if you feel like saying, please be my guest, but it's not mandatory, right? But at least to say, you know what, yeah, if a person in this situation says, oh, you could have been nicer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I could have been nicer. So, you know, appreciate the talents and qualities of others. Challenge yourself to look at others and appreciate the things they can do, and more generally, to appreciate people for who they are. You know, a very optimistic view of life is when you see others achieving their goals, their dreams. You can only say, oh my God, if people are able to do that, it's going to happen to me as well. And you appreciate and you cheer for that, because at the end of the day, we all know how hard life is how many challenges we have and on the day-to-day basis, and sometimes, you know, emotions such as envy, for instance, is only going to get in the way of us feeling more fulfilled, happier with ourselves. So one good way of doing that is really to appreciate and say, oh my God, congratulations, truly from our hearts, you know, because even if we do not know how hard it was for the person to get there, and we may be sure that it was not an easy way, right?
Mhm.
And seek guidance. Contemplate moral texts and proverbs about humility. Pray for it. Meditate on it. Whatever it takes to get your attention off yourself. So here it's the idea of how much we can also find inspiration and guidance in spiritual values that we may, you know, go according to our own inclinations and beliefs, but it's always going to help us to have a spiritual perspective when we are tracking this path. Let me see what we, and just to finish this set of ideas, think about yourself under different circumstances. Much of what we give ourselves credit for is actually a product of luck. I mean, luck here, not meaning we know that luck per se doesn't, is more a result of what we did, right? But sometimes you say, oh, why others cannot achieve what I achieved. I mean, I had to work hard. They had, if they work hard, they will get the same result. Well, maybe you had advantages that is actually related to your merit from previous incarnations that other people do not have. So let's be very considerate about that when saying things like that. You know, maybe you come from a family that were a loving family that gave you a proper education, and others did not have the same possibility, not because God doesn't love them, but because it was what was best, what they needed for this incarnation. Help others. A big part of being humble is respecting others and helping them. Treat other people as equals and help them because it's the right thing to do. It's been said that when you can help others who cannot possibly help you in return, you have learned humility.
Mm.
So again, there is no, uh, you know, you know, the intention is just to help. You're not expecting you're not doing that because you're expecting anything in return. Remain teachable. Find people you aspire to be like in certain areas and ask them to mentor you. An intractable spirit is a proud spirit, which is the opposite of humility. So there is always thing for us to learn, you know, and nowadays with all those courses online, all, you know, that we have in so many different areas, including spirituality. I mean, if we think we know it all, it's because there is a lot for us to learn. Finally, practice gentleness. Gentleness of spirit is the sure path to humility. Whenever possible, when faced with conflict, absorb the venom from others' attacks and react with gentleness and respect. The famous teachings of Jesus. This one, someone uh, slaps you in your one cheek, offer the other one, right?
Mhm.
One hit you in your, meaning not to be hit again, but to offer gentleness, to understand, to try to see from where people come and their possibilities. So I think we're going to be stopping here. We have a few more to go. We will continue next week. Okay, and if we finish earlier, we start the other topic. Okay.
I like help others because when it says you help others without expecting anything in return, I think that applies to true charity as well.
Yes. 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 Absolutely. Absolutely. It's exactly what we have to be focusing on, right? Um, and again, if we think, oh, I had to only, I had to fend for myself, I had to do things or to achieve things on my own, we will not have this charitable way of, thinking that we also need help and others need help as well, right? Yes. Good. Anything else?